Hi, I'm Olivia Krafty, and my capstone project is on Madison, Wisconsin. So it's important to know who lived on Madison, Wisconsin land first, and this is the indigenous people of the Ho-Chunk Nation. They signed a treaty with the colonizers in 1832. This acknowledged that the indigenous people were going to move to reservations and the colonizers were going to settle on Madison land. So it is important to know that they do acknowledge that the Ho-Chunk people did own the land first, and this is shown by all the signs around Madison, especially on campus on the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So it is important to know where Madison is, right? If we're talking all about it, we're learning all about it, may as well know where it is. So Madison, Wisconsin is obviously in Wisconsin on the southern part of it, and it is in the central southern Wisconsin. It is known as a lakeland lake city, so there's two lakes on either side of it, and it's Lake Mendota and Lake Monona. It's about 77 miles from Milwaukee and 122 miles northeast of Chicago. It's known for its parks, its woodlands, and it is also known for being the central of commercial agricultural region, especially in Wisconsin. It's just a good area to communicate with others, and since it's city-like, there is a lot of good resources for transportation. So the population and racial makeup of Madison, Wisconsin, it does not have a ton of diversity. However, that is pretty common in cities in the north. Its population is about 280,305 people, at least in 2023. It is 74% white, which is pretty common, like I said, in northern cities. Following that, there's about 77% of the population is Black or African American, 8% is Asian, and about 0.3% is Native. The rest is just kind of up in the air. Many different ethnic backgrounds, many different diversity backgrounds, and that just kind of all plays a factor in the diversity of Madison. Like I said, it's not super diverse, but there is some there, and it is very diverse compared to multiple other cities in the north of the United States, except for Chicago and Minneapolis. The most common age in Madison is about 18 or under, is that's 16% of the population. And next to that, it also includes college students. There are a lot of college students there because of the University of Madison, Wisconsin. With that, a lot of the settlers, or a lot of people who live in Madison, Wisconsin, are foreign-born that settled in Madison after they traveled the world and immigrated to the United States. So it is important to know about the climate in Madison, Wisconsin. It is a humid continental climate, which means that it's partly cloudy and then it's about 13 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. It's not the best place to be in if you don't want to experience any cold winters. However, it's much better than Grand Forks, North Dakota. Because of this, there are seasons in Madison, Wisconsin, and so it goes fall, winter, spring, summer, just like any other seasons. And then with that, there's a lot of leaves changing. It's very, very pretty with all the leaves, with the woodlands and then the hills and the bluffs. It's just a very beautiful place to be in the fall. With that, there is a lot of precipitation throughout the year, with the most amount of precipitation happening in the summer. It is important to know about the physical features. Like I said, it is a lakeland lake city. It's kind of like the main city between Minneapolis and Chicago. Like I said before, the lakes bordering it are the Monona Lake and the Mendota Lake. There are many hills and bluffs, like I said before as well, lots of green areas, lots of trees, and then it does have a very urban layout just because it is a major city. The ethnic fostering in Madison, Wisconsin is very diverse. There's people from many different communities, including African communities, Asian communities, Latin American communities, from the Middle East, and then from Europe. There are some people that come from a Native background, however, that is not a very common ethnic background in Madison, Wisconsin. Between 2000 and 2010, the Hispanic and Latino population increased by about 56%, and the African American population increased about 38%, so it is growingly getting more diverse every single day, just like most populations in the United States. So a lot of things that revolve around Madison do include LGBTQ communities, as they are very accepting, just like most larger cities in the north, and especially in the northeast and in California. So with this being said, there's about 30 plus businesses owned by LGBTQ people. There are many organizations and resources available to the community of LGBTQ in Madison, Wisconsin. Some of this include the ones that I have listed here, but are not limited to it. So this includes the GSAFE, the Pride Center. There is also a Pride Parade in Madison, Wisconsin, if you have not heard about it. There's also counseling available, and then many other resources available to that type of community in Madison, Wisconsin, and even more on campus there. With that, there are also social bars and social spaces specifically for the LGBTQ community. However, they do welcome everybody. So there are many traditions in Madison, Wisconsin. A lot of them revolve around the campus that's there, the University of Wisconsin-Madison, like I mentioned before. Like some of those include football games and some festivals, and then especially hockey games. Hockey and football games seem to be the biggest ones there, as they're part of the Big Ten. Like I said, there's many festivals there. Some of these include the Neugaras Oktoberfest, which is a German festival. The Winter Art Fair, that's pretty common there just because the winters aren't too cold, just like, which is a little bit different than Minneapolis and, like I said, Grand Forks. With that, there's also a Madison Marathon, which is personally my favorite. But yeah, there's also a Friday night fish fry, which I know some of my friends who go to school there really enjoy that. There are negative aspects, as there are to every single town and every single city. Just like most bigger cities that aren't quite as big as Minneapolis or Chicago or in the Northeast, there is limited public transportation. But with that, there's also high traffic. So it's hard to get from the suburbs into Madison, downtown Madison, especially if you're commuting from the rural areas. But that's just something that they need to continue working on. The cost of living is very, very high in Madison, Wisconsin. There is very sparse job availability, and then there's very little resources, like city resources, compared to the larger cities around it, such as Minneapolis and Chicago. With that being said, there are also a lot of social injustices, which is another negative aspect of Madison, Wisconsin, and most of them are with African American and Black Americans. This is because of racial inequality. Typically, African American and Black Americans in Madison, Wisconsin usually do not have as much health insurance. They're 10% more, 10% more likely to get suspended from school and education systems, and they also are less likely to own a home compared to the white population. There's also a lot of disability discrimination, especially in the workplaces in Madison, Wisconsin, and the poverty levels are very high. It's about 16.86% of a poverty rate, and the living wages are very, very different there. You need about a $21 per rate to have a good life in Madison, Wisconsin. However, the poverty rate is about $7.24. So it is very hard to live off of that, and some of those jobs include like working at McDonald's and things like that, which usually pay about $15 now. However, a lot of these people who are in poverty, they do not get to work full-time hours, which kind of brings it down. Well, thank you for listening to my presentation about Madison, Wisconsin. There are a lot of ups and downs about it, as you can tell, and it's a big takeaway is to know that it is a big city in the north. However, it's not as big as Chicago and Minneapolis, but it is overall a pretty good place to live as long as you're okay with living in a city, and then also you need to have a job that you can securely live in and that you can have for a while. All right, thanks for listening to my presentation.